Hey, this is Carlo at 4GQ TV, and I'm here with Jessica Treska. Hopefully, I said that correctly.
Yes.
Um, it's an honor to interview you. I just saw, Hysteria, and the character you play is so believable. And you're just like, no, don't corrupt. And you just see it like slowly happening. So, can you tell me a little bit how you got involved with Hysteria?
Yeah, it was a pretty traditional route of, booking a project. I got an email from my agent managers that they wanted to see a tape from me, and so I sent in a tape. One of my audition tapes is actually that cat scene in the very first episode. It's funny looking back on it now because it ended up being a completely different end product than it was in my first audition. But yeah, sent in a tape, got some good feedback, did a kind of like a work session with our writer and director and ended up booking the project.
Well, the whole cast did a great job. Everything is just so believable. And wow, the fact that you are the granddaughter of Bruce Campbell in this, that's epic. I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. So what was it like to work with Bruce?
Bruce is incredible. He is maybe the funniest man I've ever met. He is such a blast on off camera. I mean, I was trying not to laugh in some of these scenes with him because, he would just crack a joke right before they say action. He's great. He's so nice. He's so funny. He's so enjoyable to work with. And yeah, I mean, I really hope I get to work with him again.
You definitely did a great job with him on screen. Great job with all the actors on screen, the way you interacted. It's so believable. And I have to ask you this, how do you prepare yourself for a role like this? How do you get into character?
Yeah. Well, I always try to make sure that I understand where a character's come from when I'm portraying them. That's something that I always try to do is make sure I know their motives and their objectives and because no one does anything in a vacuum. There's a reason that we do everything that we do, even if it's something as crazy and inexplicable as the things that Judith does. So I really tried to understand her, and that was definitely a process. Something I did actually was try to write journal entries, something that she would have written herself from her perspective the day of, whatever scene that we're filming, to try to tap into her mindset a little bit more and figure out why she's doing the things that she does. Because it was really confusing to me because I'm reading this on paper and I'm like, this is insane. Like, who would actually do something like this? But that was the fun part for me. That's where this role was really challenging, and that's what made it so worthwhile.
So I looked at a brief history of like the other stuff that you've done, and it seems like this is kind of like a new genre for you to get into. So
Yeah,
was that a big challenge for you?
it was more exciting. I've never played kind of the antagonist before. If anything, I was either I mean, in some ways, I guess I have played the antagonist, but more of the one dimensional antagonist. Like I've played the popular, kind of bitchy girl in school before, but I've never played this version of it. And in this genre of like comedy horror. So that was all just so much fun to play around with. And yeah, it was challenging, I guess, because it's unlike anything that I've ever done before, but it was more so just so exciting.
There's one scene that really sticks out to me so far, and it's the scene where you guys are in the basement and the band is, they're about to play and they have the makeup on their faces and they're getting into character. What was it like filming that particular scene? Because it must have been like, I'm looking at this and I gotta be like, I'm in this. Like, so what was that like for you?
Gosh, it was so much fun. I mean, in the first episode, when we see them perform for the first time, I was never a huge fan of 80s music before the show. I absolutely love it now, but I've never been in like an 80s concert or anything. And it was really like a concert. I mean, the music was playing and you could feel it just reverberating through your body and Kiara was actually singing and it was incredible. I mean, I felt like I wasn't even acting. I felt like I was really just dancing and so excited with their performance. It was insane. Like I would do anything to go back to that night again. It was great.
So wait, they actually did all that performance?
They did. I mean, it isn't exactly how you see it in the show. Like, they all had played these instruments, but there were also, doubles that were doing all the close-ups and guitar solos in the show. So it wasn't 100% real, what we're seeing in the show, but it definitely was performance. Like they were actually playing, the music was playing, Kiara was singing. We were all just in this room dancing, honestly, not even worried about the cameras or where they were. We were just enjoying this performance and letting them do their thing. So yeah, it did feel very real.
So this show actually touches on a topic, especially from the I want to say mid '80s and in some areas up to the early '90s, where people were really scared of this whole thing going on. Did you go back and look at research, news articles, or anything like that to see what people were thinking?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I did some research. I had heard about the Satanic Panic before, but I didn't really know much about it. So yeah, I definitely did some research and there's a lot of truth to it. And it was something that really did cause this hysteria and, putting these symbols on album covers. And yeah, I mean, it's very true. And the timing of it makes sense, coming from 60s and then going into the 80s when all of these kids who were, these hippies and free spirits, and now they're grown up and they've, kind of radically changed. And that's what we see with Tracy happen, in her childhood. And then we follow her into, her motherhood. So, I mean, it's true and it's something that actually happened, not to this extent and with all of this, I guess, real satanic stuff going on. I guess we still don't really know exactly what happens in the show, but yeah, it definitely plays on something that was very real.
Who was your favorite character in the show when you went back to watch the whole thing after it was completed?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have to say Tracy. I mean, her story, that was my favorite storyline in the show. Was her storyline and seeing her as a kid and then growing up. I was just, I mean, it's also funny because we felt like we were filming different shows. Like I had my storyline with Dylan, and then there was the Tracy storyline and Bruce and the band, and it just felt like there were all of these storylines that obviously do end up coming together, but it felt like a lot of the time we were filming different shows. And so even though I read all the scripts, I knew what happened with Tracy and I knew all of the backstory. Watching it was a totally different experience. Watching Tracy and her acting is just impeccable. I mean, Anna Camp, wow, she did such a great job. But yeah, it was fun. It was like, even though I'm in the show, I got to see parts of the show that I don't even really remember. And so it felt like I was watching a new show as well. So that was really fun.
Were there any moments on set, like, because I know when you watch the show at home, there's a few, little jump scares here and there, things to make you think. Did you ever have like a jump scare on set during filming?
Hmm. I don't think I ever had a jump scare on set. There were definitely sets that were scary to me, like doing the episode 4 pentagram scene. It's like standing in a pentagram. That was terrifying to me. Like MJ and I had some holy water that we, would use right before that scene. So yeah, I can't remember any jump scares per se, but definitely some spooky scenes and sets that I was even scared by.
Now, I do have a question as well because you work with Bruce Campbell and he's definitely an icon for this type of genre. Did you go back and watch any of his older stuff for the first time?
I did, yeah. Yeah, and actually, I mean he's incredible. Like I did not know the extent of his fan base and his work like before this show. And then I went back and I was like, wow, I understand this. And his fans are so, passionate and that was great to see. But yeah, we also did watch Evil Dead Rise all together as a cast as well just before filming.
Did he have any tips on set and be like, oh, this is how I seen this done before? Because this topic is kind of sort of like his thing a little bit.
I don't know if he had necessarily any tips. Um, I mean, he always spews some sort of knowledge or wisdom, but yeah, I can't remember right now any specific, acting or scene tips that he gave.
Because there was something that he did that cracked me up, and it was when he was in the bar scene and he's reading the book about the Satanic Panic, and he's talking about red and black, and I'm thinking to myself, man, Bruce, you've been through this before. Did you get to watch that scene as they did it?
No, I did not see that scene. No, but I remember watching it.
What? Okay, so I know there's many scenes in this movie or the show. It's actually a series. So were there any scenes that you were just sit back and you were watching the other actors act out and you're like, man, that looks so cool?
I mean, that happened a lot for sure. I think what comes to mind is the funeral scene. So when the cross falls, I had filmed my portion of that, but then I also got to sit back and watch them do all the close-ups and unraveling the hand, and that was really fun to watch. And just the cross falling. I mean, just watching them do the wide shots of that, without any actors in it, that was a really cool kind of stunt to watch. And there's a few things like that in the show that were just so fun to watch, like the church burning down. I think I saw maybe a sliver of that. I wasn't there for the whole day, but they really built the church. I mean, because we worked in a studio, we had the inside of the church on a stage, but then they actually built the outside of the church outside of our stage so that they could burn it down. Um, and that they really did that. And that was really fun to see them set up for and start to do. I wish I got to watch the whole thing, but it looked amazing in the final product.
Something that I was always curious about, and since you are on this, maybe you have the answer. The scene that you hand the guitar over is really cool to me. It's like an iconic moment. And
Yeah,
the set, like the background with the fog and like the mist,
yeah.
it looks so cool. How did they make that? How did that happen?
Yeah, that was a beautiful set. I remember driving onto that set and I was like, wow. Because it's really just a neighborhood. We were really, really filming in a neighborhood. I think they were talking about just having, everyone who lived in those houses like turn off their lights and partake in this. And so we had this whole neighborhood. We were filming, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what time, but it was supposed to be late at night, obviously, in the show, and there was fog everywhere. I actually had to drive that car down the neighborhood. You only see me pull up and take off, in a really brief moment, but they actually had me drive all the way down that street. So that was really fun, driving in that car. I had never driven in a show before. I've done driving in a show, as in I was on like the back of a trailer truck pulling me, and it looks like I'm driving. But in the show, I actually got to drive that car, so that was really cool. And yeah, the neighborhood was beautiful, the lighting and the fog. Yeah, it was great to see in person.
So I'm not sure if you could say this or not. It's okay if you can't, but I just want to ask it. Do you think that we'll see a sequel to this?
We're really hoping. Yeah, I guess I don't really have any, insider information right now. But we're definitely hoping for that. I think we'll know relatively soon. We just, gotta wait for all of the metrics to come in and everything to really see how it did. But I do know that everyone who's watched it has absolutely loved it, and the feedback has been incredible. So we're really hoping for it.
And are there any other upcoming projects for yourself that you can talk about?
Nothing that I can say right now, aside from obviously hoping for a season two. But yeah, exciting things to come.
Okay, so everybody listening, follow the IMDb page, and that way you can see whatever's listed there. Well, Jessica, I know that we have a time and you have other interviews to get to, so I definitely want to thank you for your time for coming on today and talking to me. I'm really excited. I love this show, and I hope Peacock continues it. I hope we see more of Judith. You did an amazing job. Thank you, Jessica, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Glad you like the show.